He was hired to bring our Leafs a Stanley Cup, but never won a playoff round. The Leafs have fired head coach Mike Babcock just one day after the team lost their sixth straight game. Babcock is out after 5 years as coach. You'll remember he signed that record-setting $50 million deal. We've also learned that his replacement will be Toronto's Marlies head coach, Sheldon Keefe. Greg Ross joins us live now. And Greg, it has been a disappointing start to this season. After 6 losses in a row, something had to give.
Something definitely had to give. There was panic in this city, and you know what happens when there's panic in this city. It gets blown out of proportion, and there's no doubt that a lot of people were thinking that this was the right time. Let's think about how much things have changed over the last 5 years or so. Remember, Mike Babcock hired by the Leafs in May of 2015, and it was a celebration in this city when that happened. People were so exciting. It felt like a victory for this team, and it signified what was a turnaround in this franchise. Remember, the Leafs had struggled for more than a decade before hiring Mike Babcock, and he really did help to turn things around with this franchise. Obviously, there were some key draft picks and some key player acquisitions that happened during that time as well, but Babcock was there at the helm for this turnaround. And in his few years, he saw that success, particularly in the regular season. He missed the playoffs his first year here as they started that rebuild, but the last 3 seasons, he had led them to the postseason. But you mentioned it, Dwight. The big problem was they couldn't get the job done when it counted most. They were eliminated in the first round each of those seasons, and I think that put a lot of pressure on Mike Babcock's shoulders going into this year. He had to turn things around. He had to find a way to make this a team that was not only a first-round playoff team, but a contender for a championship. That's the reason that they brought him here. But after this start, 23 games into the season, the struggles that this team has had, they've been struggling right out of the gate. But let's face it, the last 6 games is when things have really started to turn south for the Leafs. They've seen as they plummeted in the Eastern Conference standings. And I think there were a lot of fears that this could continue. And this, I guess, was a move by Kyle Dubas and Brendan Shanahan to try and stop that bleeding.
Well, Greg, you and I talked about this in our newsroom, talking sports, saying this team looks way too good on paper to be looking this bad on the ice. So tell us about the guy now who's taking over.
Well, Sheldon Keefe, he's a guy that has had a lot of success with this organization, but with their minor league affiliate, the Toronto Marlies. In fact, a couple of years ago, he led them to a Calder Cup championship. That was a big deal. He's helped groom a lot of those players that we've seen come through the system in recent years, and he's a guy that has a very good relationship with general manager Kyle Dubas. They work together with the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds in the OHL, and a lot of people feel that when they brought Sheldon Keefe here, it was to try and groom him to one day take over as the head coach. Well, Dwight, that day is today.
Big question, how are the fans feeling tonight, Greg?
Well, the place to go for something like that, to get that kind of feeling amongst Leaf fans, is social media. And I've been looking at social media, and the reaction is mixed. Because remember, a lot of people really like Mike Babcock in this city. A lot of people were very happy when he came over here with those 2 gold medals, with the Stanley Cup championship rings that he had. But he couldn't get the job here done. And the problem is that those fans felt that it was time. So a mixed reaction, because I don't think there's a lot of people that disliked Mike Babcock, but a lot of people that did feel it was time for him to go. Here's what some of the people we talked to had to say.
Well, I don't think that all the messing with the lines that he's done as of late has really proven to be prosperous for us. And I think that we need a little bit more stability in our lines. And I think that that'll probably help us moving forward.
He was a legend. They wanted him here, and he was a legend. And now all of a sudden the team's doing poorly, so it's his fault. No, there's more to it than that.
I mean, it was time, though, honestly. Something have to do. I mean, what happened with the Raptors, right? When all those changes, as hard as it was for the fans, we got the championship. Same for the Leafs. It was time.
You know, a lot of people also saying that they felt like Mike Babcock maybe had lost the room, that the players no longer were listening to him. And when that happens, that really is the end for a coach with this team. If the players aren't listening and they're not getting the results with the draft picks that they've had, with the players that they have right now, the big contracts that they have, something has to give. And certainly Kyle Dubas felt that this was the time to fire his head coach, Dwight.
Well, let's hope that last fan we spoke to was right. It worked for the Raptors. It may work for our Leafs. Thank you for this, Greg.
I am very much looking forward to ensuring that one of the things we do as a cabinet is continue to engage with stakeholders and leaders right across the country.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau unveiling his new cabinet, 36 women and men, including 7 new faces. The government says the focus will be on fighting climate change, boosting the middle class, and Indigenous reconciliation. Liberal MPs from Toronto are well represented in Justin Trudeau's new cabinet. University Rosedale MP Chrystia Freeland getting perhaps the biggest promotion. She becomes the country's Deputy Prime Minister.
I will truly and faithfully, and to the best of my skill and knowledge, execute the powers and trusts reposed in me.
Freeland is also being tasked with addressing mounting political frustration in the West. Toronto's former police chief and MP for Scarborough Southwest, Bill Blair, takes on the new role of Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness. Eglinton Lawrence MP Marco Mendocino becomes the Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship. He takes over that portfolio from the York Southwestern MP. You see there, Ahmed Hussein. Hussein is moving into the role of Minister of Families, Children and Social Development. Joining us with more on the changes is Hannah Thibodeau. She's in our Parliamentary Bureau in Ottawa. And Hannah, what is Trudeau trying to do with this new cabinet?
Well, this is a really big change for him. He's, in fact, splitting his role as Prime Minister. He's giving a lot of that function to Chrystia Freeland as Deputy Prime Minister. Now, it's kind of a ceremonial role where she'll fill in for him, but it also gives her a lot of clout when dealing with the provinces because her real main role here is intergovernmental affairs. She's moved from an international role as Foreign Affairs Minister, where it was really important. She negotiated NAFTA. She was dealing with the Trump administration, and she was seen to have done a really good job in that portfolio. Now you see, by promoting her to this new role, it's about putting the focus on something else, and those are domestic issues, because currently we know that the Liberals don't hold any seats in Alberta. They have none in Saskatchewan. We heard from the premiers of those two provinces that the West is being alienated. So this is a way to try to bring them back. She has that clout now as being the representative of the Prime Minister to deal with issues like energy, like climate, all of those big issues, but also pharmacare. And they're going to need to deal with these premiers, including Premier Doug Ford, who often has words to say about the Prime Minister, all of these premiers who are really kind of anti-Trudeau, and bring them back on side to get legislation through, to get their ideas through. So it's important to have her there. We had a chance to hear from the Prime Minister on this. Here's what he had to say about the new role.
We know that as we move forward on issues that matter right across the country, like energy and environment and other large issues, we're going to have to engage in a strong and positive way with governments, different orders of government right across the country. And I'm very much looking forward to doing that with Chrystia by my side.
So she's going to have to try to ease those tensions with the West. But another person who's been put in to try to ease those tensions and build up the energy sector is Seamus O'Regan. Seamus, of course, is from Newfoundland and Labrador. However, it is an oil-producing province. So without representation in the West, they put him in to help deal with that through the Natural Resources file. Also, another big player in this is the Environment Minister, and that's because it was a big part of the election platform. Jonathan Wilkinson, BC MP, will be handed that. He's going to have to deal with this issue. And in fact, it's dealing with the provinces as well on that. So a lot of issues that are in the mandate of this Liberal government are provincial issues, and they put in some strong players to try to deal with them.
A name that is very familiar to Torontonians, Bill Blair. He has a new portfolio, and it's going to deal with an issue that's very concerning to this region right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Guns. This is something that he was managing before, but he didn't have this big role. He has now taken on the role of Public Safety Minister. This was vacated, of course, because Ralph Goodale, the Public Safety Minister previously, lost his seat. He was a Saskatchewan MP. So now Bill Blair is taking over this role. It's something he knows very well, and expects some announcements coming up in the near future. And the reason why we're hearing that could potentially happen, that issues like we heard in the election campaign, like giving the regions the opportunity to ban handguns. That's one of the things we expect to hear. So he's going to have to bring through all this legislation. It's something he knows well. And it's not only that, but it's RCMP, CSIS, all of those other departments included in this file. So it's a big portfolio for him.
Let's finish with this, Hannah. New people in place. What's next for this government?
Yeah, the big thing is the throne speech, which happens next week. So that is the map for this government. We'll see what they plan to do in this minority government. And also, we're going to wait to see exactly what their job descriptions are. Those mandate letters should come out in the next couple of weeks, so it'll be crystal clear what all these cabinet ministers are supposed to do, Dwight.
Senior reporter Hannah Thibodeau in our Parliamentary Bureau in Ottawa. Thank you, Hannah.
Quite welcome.
Now, nearly half of Justin Trudeau's cabinet comes from Ontario, and 11 of those ministers are from the GTA. Let's bring in our Queen's Park reporter, Mike Crawley. And Mike, things have been pretty testy between the Ford government and the Trudeau government. How is the Premier reacting to this new federal cabinet, specifically Chrystia Freeland?
Premier Doug Ford put out a congratulatory tweet saying that his government is, quote, looking forward to working with our federal counterparts. For this provincial government, I'd say that arguably Chrystia Freeland's name is the most important in this new cabinet. Now, she is, of course, a downtown Toronto MP, but she's going to be bringing those international diplomacy skills that she learned as Foreign Affairs Minister into being diplomatic with the premiers, including premiers like Doug Ford and the other conservative premiers across this province that don't exactly see eye to eye with Justin Trudeau or Justin Trudeau's government. Look, the PCs that I have spoken to today, the folks who are connected to the Ford government, they have some pretty good things to say about Chrystia Freeland. They say she's been one of Trudeau's best performing ministers, one of his most skilled cabinet ministers, and that she worked very well with the Ford government during the renegotiation of the NAFTA trade deal. The Ford government sees her as somebody who's bright and politically savvy, and they feel that appointing Chrystia Freeland to intergovernmental affairs is a sign that that portfolio is very important for the country right now, Dwight.
Okay, so what does this then do overall for the relations between the Ford government and the Trudeau government?
Well, look, certainly things couldn't get much worse than they were in the run-up to the election campaign. These two governments are going to have ideological differences. That's very clear. But there's even people in the Ford government who are saying that Chrystia Freeland's somebody who's got a strong grasp of the issues that matter to the provinces. So they feel also that Freeland's got the stature within the cabinet, I think the word clout is what Hannah Thibodeau used, to that when she speaks, when she talks to Doug Ford, she's speaking with the authority of the Prime Minister. So look, we're going to get an up-close glimpse of the premiers flexing their political muscles in less than 2 weeks. Premier Ford is hosting a meeting of the premiers in Mississauga on December the 2nd, and the topic is going to be how the provinces deal, how the premiers deal with the new minority government in Ottawa. Dwight?
And we will have that for our viewers. Thank you, Mike. Staying at Queen's Park, the opposition is calling for the Auditor General to investigate the full costs of those cancelled green energy contracts we told you about yesterday.
Will the Ford government take action today to ensure transparency and ask the Auditor General to conduct a complete review of the total costs of these cancelled contracts?
We will not be deterred from our efforts to continue to ensure that this system, our energy system, is simpler, less complex, Mr. Speaker, and more affordable.
The Ford government is spending more than $250 million to pull out of energy contracts signed by the previous Liberal government. The NDP says that number could climb, and it wants a review of just how much it will cost taxpayers. The energy minister today not promising a review. Instead, he defended the cancelled contract, saying it will make hydro more affordable. A group of tenants are concerned some seniors in their building could wind up homeless due to rent increases. The landlord of their building on Avenue Road has applied for above the guideline increases. Tenants say it could end up adding about $100 a month to their rent. Angelina King has more.
You can see here how much it is.
Agnes Von Maren has lived in her apartment for more than 30 years. For the last year, she's been poring over papers fighting a proposed rent increase. She says her rent could go up by around $100 a month and that tenants could face a 6.2% increase next year.
Which is extraordinary. And something has to be done about it, because you know what? It's forcing tenants into homelessness. These increases.
Tenants have been meeting to fight the increase. They say about 40% of the building are seniors on fixed incomes.
They can't afford to move, and they can't afford to stay.
Each year, the province sets a maximum rent increase. For next year, it's 2.2%. But landlords can apply to raise rent on top of that under certain circumstances, including if their taxes have increased significantly or if they've done major renovations. The work can't include routine maintenance and cosmetic work. The tenants say work in their building included balcony restoration, new carpets, and lobby renovations. The building is 62 years old. Hollyburn Properties bought it in 2015 and says it needed lots of work. It says it's improving the livability for residents and ensuring the building is safe. In a statement, the company says there is a formal process to substantiate their work and says Ontario allows landlords to recoup some of the costs of significant updates through a rental increase. The increase has yet to be approved.
The tenants that don't have to pay for it.
This tenant advocate says his organization hears complaints of above guideline increases every day. He's been pushing the government to get rid of the practice.
What's infuriating for tenants is what's their original rent for in the first place? They're already paying rent to do the maintenance for the building. Landlords just are able to gouge them for more. And that's just because the law allows them to.
In hopes of a decrease, the tenants say they went through mediation in June and have been waiting on a landlord and tenant board hearing since then, but no date has been set. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
The Ontario government announcing a $90 million investment in dental care this morning, giving low-income seniors access to free routine checkups.
Our seniors built this province. We need to make sure that we take care of our seniors because they've always taken care of us.
The province says the program will help more than 100,000 seniors. They say the funding is aimed at reducing the thousands of dental-related emergency room visits in the province each year. Eligible seniors must be 65 and over without dental benefits. They also must have an income of less than about $19,000 for a single person and about $32,000 for a couple. Seniors can apply online or at your local public health unit. Damning testimony today at the impeachment inquiry in Washington. The U.S. ambassador to the EU said he was ordered to pressure Ukraine to investigate Donald Trump's political rival, Joe Biden. Gordon Sunderland drew a direct line to President Trump and his inner circle. Katie Simpson now with the details.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony...
Armed with emails and details, the president's top man in Europe flipped on his boss.
I was acting in good faith. As a presidential appointee, I followed the directions of the president.
U.S. Ambassador to the EU, Gordon Sondland, confirmed he was part of a ploy to pressure the Ukrainians to launch an investigation into the 2016 election and Democratic rival Joe Biden and his son.
Everyone was in the loop. It was no secret.
The president's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, was leading the charge, Sondland said, adding U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo knew, as did acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, Vice President Mike Pence, and former National Security Advisor John Bolton.
Now, in your opening statement, you confirm that there was a quid pro quo.
Correct.
And in fact, you say that other senior officials in the State Department and the Chiefs of Staff's office, including Mick Mulvaney, Secretary Pompeo, were aware of this quid pro quo, that in order to get the White House meeting, there were going to have to be these investigations the president wanted.
Correct.
Republicans tried to poke holes in Sondland's claims, highlighting a direct conversation he had with Trump in early September when the president specifically denied he wanted a quid pro quo.
And you believe the president, correct?
You know what? I'm not going to characterize whether I believed or didn't believe. I was just trying to convey what he said on the phone.
But here's my response.
Trump seized on this, refuting the testimony by reading from prepared notes.
I say to the ambassador in response, I want nothing. I want nothing. I want no quid pro quo. Tell Zelensky, President Zelensky, to do the right thing.
Republicans appeared unaware Sondland was going to turn on Trump. In opening comments, they praised him, but by the end of the hearings, they tried to discredit him as someone who didn't take notes and wasn't very involved. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
I'm Nick Boisvert here on the 70 O'Connor bus, which, according to some new data, may be the worst in the entire city. Coming up, we'll take a look at those numbers and hear from some people who depend on the service.
I've got one word for you, Colette. Balmy. Love it out there today.
Yeah, beautiful out there. Sunshine, mild temperatures. It's been 10 days since we've had a temperature that's exceeded 7 degrees. It probably feels like a little bit longer than that, but that's how long it's been. Back on the 10th, we went to 7.4 degrees. Here are the unofficial daytime highs today. So Toronto up to 8, Oshawa 8, Markham, Mississauga, Burlington. Some beautiful numbers to see there. Finally, a little bit above seasonal, right? Temperatures cooling down, though, now. We're down to 3 degrees as we're stepping forward into the evening hours. The wind's fairly light, so they're not going to be mixing the atmosphere very much tonight. So some patchy fog. Again, we have that potential. So some areas, even into tomorrow morning, may have some reduced visibility. Now, those winds, those will be ramping up as we go later in the day. Tomorrow and into Friday, it'll be a totally different story. We do have dry conditions for the overnight period and to start the day off tomorrow. And then things begin to change up as we go into the afternoon. So when you walk out the door in the morning, you still want to grab the umbrella if you're going to be out for an extended period of time. Because as we go towards the afternoon hours, showers developing. Now, there may be some breaks in that for the GTA and then kind of filling back in. We'll have that rain through the overnight. Then with some colder air filtering in up to the north and west, we'll be looking at a very, very light kind of mix or some wet, light snow. This is going to be moving through so quickly that it's really going to be hard for anything to accumulate, but we'll get into a strong northwesterly wind. That will set up some streamers and likely some flurries will make their way into the GTA as the temperature begins falling as we go into Friday. -3 tonight, tomorrow, holding on to 6 degrees, but things will be changing. I'll talk about that coming up, Dwight.
We are holding on tight. Thank you, Colette.
You got it.
There is a new contender for the title of Toronto's worst bus route. New data suggests the 70 O'Connor out of Coxwell Station is the easy choice, and the people who use the route say they aren't surprised to hear it. Nick Boisvert explains.
Along the 70 O'Connor bus route, riders say this is a rare sight.
Sometimes 3 buses go up before one come down.
Sometimes I'm right in front of Sinclair and O'Connor, the old age home there, waiting for the O'Connor 70 go to Warden. A good 40 minutes, 45 minutes.
Riders on the line say this bus has long been one of Toronto's worst, where bunched up vehicles and long delays are the norm.
Next stop, Osborne Avenue.
One Saturday afternoon in October, I just happened to notice a message go by in my Twitter feed from someone saying, "Hey, where's my O'Connor bus?"
Transit writer Steve Monroe has been analyzing bus data since 2007, covering around 40 routes.
The numbers on O'Connor were the worst I had seen on any of the routes I'd looked at so far. Nothing prepared me to see a route where on many occasions most, if not all, of the buses on the route were at only one location.
On the day of October 5th, the TTC says they likely sent some extra buses to fill in the gaps, but those vehicles don't get included in the official data. What's more, they say no one filed any service complaints that day. The TTC says delays are an issue on the line, but it points to construction and road closures as a factor. In a statement, the transit agency said this particular route will have revised schedules in the spring, but until then, we will do better in managing any delays or gaps when they occur as a result of construction on Eglinton Crosstown. Monroe says that's hardly an excuse or a solution.
Just changing the running time doesn't change a culture that says it's okay for vehicles to run close together.
The issue might be particularly bad on the 70 O'Connor, but riders say it happens all over the city.
Some route is like that. You'll be waiting for a while, and then all of a sudden you will see 3 buses one time just pass by. And some of them is almost empty.
The TTC says it's trying to improve how it handles those situations as they unfold, but it didn't provide any specifics. Nick Boisvert, CBC News, Toronto.
Yeah, it's time to cut loose, foot loose. Remember that for these students at York Memorial. After a stressful end of the year, their school burned down last spring. Today's celebration was all thanks to some generous alumni. We'll bring you the details after the break.
The weather update is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
This is York Memorial Collegiate Institute in May when a fire tore through the school, causing serious damage and displacing hundreds of students and staff. Now, the community is coming together to fundraise and rebuild. York Memorial Collegiate is a shell of the school it once was, but today, finally some good news. Local performers treated the students, now relocated, to a concert to boost morale. And as Alicia San tells us, the idea came from some dedicated alumni.
Me and a lot of old schoolmates texted each other, and I just said that, I wanted to do something, after this all settles down and see if I could be of any help to the school that helped build me.
Out of the ruins came an idea. York Memorial alum William Nguyen assembled a crew to put on a show for the displaced York Memorial students in their new school in the old Scarlet Heights building, which was a fixer-upper to say the least.
So they've been abandoned for about 2 to 3 years. So when we wanted to plan out this concert, we realized that these lights actually don't plug into anything. There was actually nowhere to plug power in.
The effort isn't lost on students.
You guys deserve a little fun. Yeah.
Or staff.
It was like watching your second home burn down. It's starting to create a sense of normalcy for them, and not seeing it so much tied into the school, the spirit, but really in the people.
Whoa, that's really profound. In the crowd today, I spotted a familiar face.
Can I have a hug? It was actually really nice. I'm so happy you're doing okay. And the last time we talked, we were looking through your backpack and it was soaked.
Yeah, it was soaked.
And we weren't sure if we could save your laptop. What happened with it?
No, it's broke up. It's like, it's over. I had to buy a new one because, you know, it wasn't working. My papers were all wet.
I remember.
And they expect us to have exams? You're crazy.
In the end, they didn't have to write the finals that week. And for the most part, were able to start fresh after a difficult year.
And then the school just burns down. Like, what? Like, but then now it's just, we're all like enjoying ourselves, which is like very good.
I mean, I wish I had something like this when I was in high school. I'm very honored to be able to do this, you know, for a school that I once went to.
Nguyen managed to raise $22,000 to give back to students who may have lost some possessions, but not their spirit. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Singing the praises of music's biggest stars, the Grammy nominations are out, including an all-female list for Best Pop Solo Performance. Tashana Reed will break it all down for us coming up. He came to Toronto with the promise of building a new and improved Leafs team, but as of tonight, Mike Babcock is no longer the Leafs coach. Babcock was fired by the team today, the move coming after the Leafs went on a 6-game losing streak. Babcock signed with the team back in 2015. At the time, it was the richest coaching contract in NHL history at $50 million US over 8 years. Leafs president Brendan Shanahan addressed the media in Arizona a short while ago and explained why now was the right time to make this move.
You know, we feel that we haven't played up to our expectations this year. I think that there are key elements to our game and some attention to detail that has been missing often this year. And so, you know, the players know that whenever a situation like this occurs, it does have an impact on the players. But our game is not really meeting our expectations. We're mistake prone on defense. The attention to details aren't there, and even the offense that our team, the explosive offense our team was known for, has been missing for a while now. So there's a lot of work for Sheldon to do, and there's a lot of work for the players to do, and they understand that. But we really believe in them. We believe in the players that we have here. We believe in Sheldon, obviously, in making this decision. And so we're still optimistic that we're going to get it back on track.
You heard Shanahan reference the Leafs' new coach, Sheldon Keefe. He gets a promotion from the Leafs farm team. For more on what the Leafs' new coach brings to the table, let's bring in Hailey Salvian live in Montreal. She covers the Ottawa Senators for The Athletic, but spent all of last season covering Sheldon Keefe and the Toronto Marlies. So, Hailey, first, talk about the history between Leafs GM Kyle Dubas and Keefe. This isn't a surprise that Keefe got the job.
No, I mean, it's certainly not a huge surprise. I mean, if you even just look at last year after the Leafs lost in the first round again, and then the Marlies went deep into the playoffs, you know, after they lost in the third round. It was the locker cleanout day, and Sheldon Keefe, you know, the big question was going to be, is Sheldon going to leave and coach in the NHL because he is an NHL caliber coach? But then it was a kind of surprise announcement that he was extended for 2 more years at the American Hockey League level. So that was kind of the first signal that, you know, the organization was maybe trying to keep him around in the chance that a coaching job was available with the Toronto Maple Leafs. So the organization kind of made that commitment to keep Sheldon in Toronto. And then just looking back even further, I guess 7 or 8 years now, Sheldon and Kyle first started working together in the Ontario Hockey League with the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, and they had a lot of success there. And then Kyle left Sault Ste. Marie and went to Toronto. Sheldon kind of followed suit right after that. So, you know, that general manager and coach relationship is really important, and I think they have a pretty strong one.
All right, we can hear the noise in the background because you're in the Bell Center in Montreal. These two come with a winning pedigree, their partnership, though, right?
Yeah, definitely. And sorry about the noise. I thought it maybe added to the fun environment we're talking about. But no, they definitely have a winning pedigree together. You know, they went really deep into the playoffs in Sault Ste. Marie, and they won the organization's first Calder Cup championship together 2 years ago now with the Marlies, and Sheldon's the winningest coach in franchise history at the AHL level. So they definitely know how to win together.
Let's finish up with the young players on the Leafs that he was involved in the development of some of these kids.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's been really huge in the development of some of these kids. If you just look at the Leafs roster and some of the players who played this year, a lot of them were coached by Sheldon, even up to last week in Toronto with the Marlies. Even just looking at Pierre Engvall, who just got called up, and Travis Dermott, Andreas Janssen, Kasperi Kapanen, Rasmus Sandin, who played at the beginning of the season. You know, they all worked really closely with Sheldon, and I think if you talk to any of them, they would speak really highly about the things he's done for their development.
Hailey Salvian used to cover Keefe and the Marlies. She's now covering the Senators, and fresh out of journalism school, used to work in our newsroom before she was out there conquering the world of sports as a reporter. Thanks for your time, Hailey. We'll talk again.
Thanks for having me.
The province's Special Investigations Unit is now looking into the death of a 30-year-old man in Mississauga. As Linda Ward reports, the man died not long after he was tasered by Peel police.
It began around 2 a.m. Residents say they heard a commotion coming from this parkette and this plaza across the street here on Running Brook Drive. It sounded like a lot of yelling, and then about an hour later, this resident called 12 Division to say that there was a suspicious person outside his home.
There was a fella running up down the street here, screaming and hollering, whatever. And he was on my property, on my lawn here, my driveway. I thought he was going to break in, and I phoned the police.
Peel police arrived en masse, searching the entire neighborhood. They say they found a person of interest in the backyard of this home.
Well, it went around the corner. I stayed in the house where it was safe, so I don't know. There's a bunch of cruisers, and then they just kept coming and coming and coming.
One neighbor woke up and noticed all the police lights and looked out to see paramedics trying to save the man's life.
Then I saw the cops running into the guy's backyard, and then all of a sudden they came running out, and then a bunch of other cop cars came, and the ambulance came, and then I see them bringing somebody out on a stretcher and then working on his chest.
The 30-year-old man was pronounced dead less than an hour later in hospital. The Special Investigations Unit is now investigating and looking into just how this interaction with police cost him his life.
As officers were attempting to communicate with the man, a struggle ensued. As part of the struggle, several use of force options were used, including the deployment of a conducted energy weapon. The man was taken into custody and soon after went vital signs absent.
They won't say how many officers were involved and if the taser actually hit the man and if it caused his death. But witnesses tell us they believe the man had been out drinking in the area that night. They say groups of people typically hang out in that parkette and in that plaza having a few drinks. There's even a full can of beer that was found here within the scene. The SIU is now looking into whether the man was impaired by drugs or alcohol and whether the use of force employed by Peel police was justified. Linda Ward, CBC News, Mississauga.
A Toronto police officer involved in the arrest and release of Bruce MacArthur in 2016 has pleaded not guilty to disciplinary charges. Sergeant Paul Gauthier is charged with insubordination and neglect of duty. It's alleged he mishandled a complaint by a man who claimed MacArthur had tried to strangle him by not obtaining a video statement of the complaint or photographing the injuries. The complaint came about 2 years before the arrest of MacArthur, who is now serving a life sentence in prison for the murders of 8 men. Gauthier previously released a 2-page letter adamantly disputing the charges. It feels strange to have a day like this, Colin, after what we just went through with all that snow.
I know, it was so beautiful. I mean, it's a little difficult, a few areas where there's snow, you know, to imagine it's spring, but it kind of had that kind of feel when you've got some sunshine in there and that temperature's, I say spiking, but hey, it was a little above seasonal, up to 8 degrees. So yeah, just such a pleasant afternoon. Well, again tonight, just know that with some lighter winds, we'll likely see some patchy fog showing up, and that means some reduced visibility in a few spots. Moving in by tomorrow afternoon, we get into rain showers, and you'll need the umbrella, but you'll need to hold on to it because the winds will really be ramping up later in the day and in overnight towards Friday. Temps generally mild, and I'll kind of break that down for you a little more into the 5-day forecast. Our average high, though, at this time of year is 6, and as I say, we saw our temperatures going up there around 8 degrees, so a little bit above seasonal. These are the current readings, though. You can see it's cooled off pretty quickly. There's a little more cloud cover back towards southwestern Ontario. They actually weren't as mild as we were today, but they're holding on to some of their warmth a little bit better as we're seeing things kind of falling off through the overnight hours. And then we'll see the system. Now, it is going to move through pretty quickly. What's nice about that is that when we get on the backside of it and it turns into some light wet snow or a little mix, it's going to move out of here and not really leave much in the way of accumulation. So it goes like this. Tomorrow morning is quiet, but then the showers developing in the afternoon. There may be some breaks in the activity, and then it kind of fills back in through the overnight. Then things start to change over as winds turn towards the northwest and cooler air moves in. Just note that there will be some streamers. So when I say light accumulations, I mean from the system itself. There will be a few localized areas where you may pick up a little bit more until those winds kind of die down later into Friday. Overnight tonight, those temperatures falling off around -3 around the area. A few areas will be just a little bit milder than that. And our highs tomorrow not quite as warm as what they were for today, and then temperatures falling on Friday, so they'll be coming down from the morning reading to what happens in the afternoon, a little cooler than Dwight for Saturday, but that's okay because the temperatures are going to start to go back up again into next week.
It sure is okay. Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
Trucks for Change held their 5th annual food sort today, all in support of the Daily Bread Food Bank.
2, 1, sort!
We get in thousands and thousands of pounds of food and we need to sort it. So our public donates very generously. We need to sort that food so it can go to our member agencies, so it can go to people in need.
About 130 people from more than a dozen trucking companies took part. In all, they sorted through 42,000 pounds of food. Trucks for Change donates their time each year for the event, but they also give back in other ways.
Most charities across the country, their biggest problem, other than funding, is transportation. So on a daily basis, we are hauling donated food and materials across the country, either free of charge or at reduced rates to help the charities.
Good for you. All of the sorted food will be delivered to agencies across the GTA to serve people and families in need. Today, Trucks for Change has raised more than $100,000 through food sort challenges. We're going to be doing this with the CBC in a couple of weeks. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
as the Best New Artist is a really promising, powerful nomination and also award to receive. You know, it says a lot.
The 2020 Grammy nominations are out. A lot of young artists getting nods, including a number of Canadians. The hardware will be handed out January 26th. Let's bring in Tashana Reed to talk about some of the artists looking to pick up a statue on that night. And, of course, Tashana, we have to start with the Canadians.
Of course. You know, there are not as many Canadians as we might be used to seeing in comparison to recent years for the Grammys, but still Canadians, of course, making a name for themselves. And let's start with Jessie Reyez, because she earned her first Grammy nomination. The Toronto artist, of course, known for her sultry voice. She's a two-time Juno Award winner, and now potentially she could be a Grammy Award winner. So she was nominated for her 7-track album, Being Human in Public. It was up for Best Urban Contemporary Album. And as we know, for new artists earlier in their careers, this is a big deal, of course. Now, a lot of people, of course, are asking, where's Drake? Where's he at? He actually leads the number of Canadian nominees. He has 2 nominations, but people might be surprised what songs he was nominated for. It's actually songs that he collaborated with other artists on. So songs such as No Guidance with Chris Brown, and as well as rapper Rick Ross's Gold Roses. So Drake's longtime producer, Noah Shabib, also gets a credit and nomination for that. And have to talk about Daniel Caesar, Oshawa-born Daniel Caesar. He actually collaborated with Brandy and earned a nomination in the category that he actually won last year. So R&B performance, best R&B performance is what he will be up for. So that recognition, again, great news for him. Great to see his name up there. Also, Shawn Mendes, another Ontario native from Pickering, Ontario, and he earned a Best Pop Duo nomination for a song he did with his girlfriend, Camila Cabello.
Aren't they a duo themselves?
Yes, Senorita. You've heard the song a million times on your radio. They will be competing as well. And I have to mention Michael Bublé. Of course, he's from BC, but he is up for his cover song album called Love, and he's been up many years before. So looking forward to seeing how all of these artists do.
I think we'll do well. So we've gone through the Canadians, but it's not just us. There are some other folks who are getting some nods too across the border.
I have to tell you, it is quite amazing to see some of the nominees this year who are getting tons of nominations. We're talking about Lizzo. Lizzo is a new artist, new face to the music scene.
Did you find some PG to show of Lizzo here?
We did. We're keeping it PG for all of you guys, but 8 nominations. Can you believe that? She's fairly new to the music scene, and she's in the top 4 categories. I'm talking everything from Song for the Year to Best New Artist. Quite the feat for a new face to music. Also, up against her, 6 nominations for Billie Eilish, 17 years old. And what I really love about her style is the fact that she collaborates with her brother. Every song she's released has been a song that she's written with her brother, and she has just blown people away. She's very unique, very out there.
Uber talented.
And another person that we'll be watching, another top contender, Lil Nas X, who all of us were singing Old Town Road this year. This song broke records, #1 for weeks. Billy Ray Cyrus, so he is going to be up. Big contenders. Young contenders as well, new faces doing big things in music.
And the ladies like killing it with the pop this year.
I'm telling you, women are having a year. We'll see, of course, what happens. I was going to say Juno Awards, but the Grammys.
You cover those
I'm
too
thinking
for
about
us.
the Canadian Juno Awards. The Grammys are January 26th.
Can you come back and we'll talk about the winners?
I would love to.
Thank you, Tashana.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Look at your beautiful waterfront. Speaking of beautiful, today was warmer than we've seen in days. Will it continue? One last check with Colette after the break. Stay with us. Since I've just spent an hour giving you bad news, Colin has some good news with our Greater Toronto segment.
Yeah, I get to talk to you about something called Wish and Give.
Okay.
So we know the holidays can be stressful. You're trying to buy gifts, try and get the right thing. But for parents, and I know you remember these days,
I do.
it can be stressful all year round when you're having to buy gifts for birthday parties.
Constantly.
Every week, that kind of thing. Well, Wish and Give can step in and help not only with the parents with that part of things and the stress of trying to buy the right gift, but also by making it a teachable moment and helping kids figure out a way to give back to their community. So it's an online platform that will help the kids to do this, but it's not just for kids. Take a look. I talked to some kids down at Moonbeam Books on Jane Street, and they told me how they did it.
So how it works is a party host on the invitation side would set up their invitation online at wishandgive.ca, and then the guests are invited to contribute to a group gift and a donation to charity in lieu of individual gifts. We've uploaded all 86,000 plus charities in Canada onto the site. So you can search by postal code to find a charity near you. So this is helping also to just educate Canadians about, what's a local food bank or shelter that's down the street that you might not have realized.
So it can be kind of helpful for parents, right?
Right. So as a guest parent, you're clicking through with your credit card in your yoga pants at 11 o'clock at night and not having to go out and buy, one more piece of plastic gift that you don't even know the child's going to want.
How old are you?
8. She was very keen on having a yoga birthday party this year. So part of the yoga philosophy is to be giving back, and it went part and parcel with the party. So I was able to make up a short list of things that I thought would resonate with her, and then she was able to pick the final choice.
It helps kids, if kids can't afford stuff, then it will give money to kids that can go to events.
Like to a sporting event or to see a play or some kind of a music show like that?
Yeah.
So you want to help other kids be able to go and do things that, you get to do things like that sometimes?
What she gets out of it is deeper thinking about not taking everything for herself and not having, or any kid, not just Signe, but for any child. They have access to so much.
They still get something for their kids, they're still getting some kind of gift for themselves.
Yeah. I love that she's able to buy something and keep it, and we don't have extra stuff that's sometimes forgotten.
Do you think it's something you'll keep doing as you grow up?
Yeah.
Especially for kids. My mission, I say, is growing givers. And so we're really trying to teach and empower the next generation to give back.
Growing givers, love that.
Yeah, and it's important the kids still get their gift as well.
Right.
So they're not giving everything up, but they're really learning. And this can be used for anything, too, for retirements, engagement parties, anything.
Great way to end the show. That's it for us. Good night, everybody.